Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, college football playoff fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show, featuring Clay Hall. Clay's got the day off, but that doesn't mean I don't have a sidekick. Here's my sidekick for a second straight show, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Snook. Jeff Snook, welcome back.
Timothy, it's always great to be here with you.
Yeah, I appreciate your input. Some of it has to be translated, but that's okay. We'll send everybody a thesaurus, and I got dictionary.
Bilingual.
Because he is bilingual, speaks out of both sides of his mouth often. But I digress. Bottom line is, as we record this, Ohio State is 1 day away. The number 2 team in the country is 1 day away for playing his first college football playoff game of the year. Of this season. You know, obviously played 2 games in this year earlier to win a national championship. But it's very interesting matchup. Ohio State and Miami in the Cotton Bowl. The coaches, by the way, Mario Cristobal of Miami and Ryan Day were part of a final press conference before the game uh, at at&t Stadium earlier today before we recorded this, and that's kind of what they look like. Picture courtesy of yours truly, Jim May, but on the stage after the press conference, uh, they were cordial to each other. They weren't telling jokes. There were very few jokes told, if at all. And I was I was impressed really by the game face both coaches had on, uh, because these press conferences usually you don't get much out of them. I don't think we got much out of this one today, except for both of these guys look like they're getting ready to play a game that matters. Agree?
Yeah, I mean, you're so close to the game now that, the game plan is in the oven, as they say, and that's baking. It's done. They're pulling it out. They're getting ready to go, and just, they're so close to the game. There's so many, things going through their minds right now. The last thing they want to do, and I know this for a fact, these coaches would tell you off the record, is go up here in front of the media and answer stupid questions. And
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there were a lot of stupid questions. In fact, some of the best answers were to a couple of stupid questions.
I'm paraphrasing. Well, I always said that. I always said there's really no
Hit 'em.
to see what and somebody say that's a stupid question. There's really no stupid question. It's some of the dumbest questions I ever heard got the best answer. And so you never know what you're going to get. But they don't want me sitting here talking to the media right now. They want to kick it all.
Hey, do you remember you were at press conference before? What was that? Oklahoma. Who was it? Oklahoma and somebody where Bob Stoops.
Yes, that would have been Florida State, Oklahoma in 2000. Bobby Bounders, Bob Stoops, yeah, and the Seminoles had just won a title the year before in the Superdome by beating Virginia Tech and Frank Bean.
You and I were both there.
Yeah, of course. We covered that game. So, yeah, I mean, the day before press conference with the 2 coaches there, back then they do it one at a time, and I think Stoops went first, then Bobby went first, and Stoops was very offended by them being an underdog, and they were both undefeated in that game. Actually, Florida State had 1 loss away. But, Oklahoma's undefeated, and he was offended they were the underdog with all their tradition. That's all he talked about. The tradition here greater than Florida State, blah, blah, blah. And I remember after the press conference, that would have been January 2nd, I believe, whatever year, 2001. And Ohio State had just lost the previous day to South Carolina in the was that the Hall of Fame Bowl? They won at Tampa. So,
Oh, it was the Outback Bowl by the
okay, so they lost to Lou Holtz. And you remember the little running back, Ryan Brewer from Ohio, that John Cooper did not improve to become a star at South Carolina and beat him, beat him for the first of 2 successive years in the same bowl. Then they beat Tressel next year. It's for bowl game. But anyway, Bobby saw me and called me off the side of the stage. And on these Nike trips, as you're well aware, where all the coaches go on Nike trips together, in January, every January, a courtesy and Phil Knight, and they're extravagant, let me tell you. I've been a couple who really, really great with coaches. That's why they love being a Nike partner. Bobby calls me aside because he used to hang around with John and Paterno. So John Cooper, Paterno, I mean, people did shove Bobby Bowden. They were the threesome old guys hanging around together on the beach, wherever they were. And Bobby liked John. He liked John Cooper. He called me already. What happened to John? What happened to John? And why'd they fire him? He was indignant why they fired him. I forget what I told him. I said he like lost control of the team, or that guy's not going to class. He lost another bowl game. He lost to Michigan again. Let me run down the list for you, Bobby. You know, he did. He still have to pay attention to his own team.
He just saw John Cooper's overall record, which was
Very nice. He was close with. So I went down the list of why Andy Geiger fired him. And so listen, Andy Geiger gave him 3 contract extensions over the years when he could have fired him much, much earlier. And when I went through the off the field problems, I think the kid's name was Kenyon Rambo. Well, yeah, like, there were several. And Bobby was a great listener. And I didn't know any of that. I didn't know any of that. Oh, that's a shame. I didn't know any of that. So yeah, I remember that pretty impressive.
yeah, it was pretty amazing. And then didn't you have a little bit of a tete-a-tete or run-in with Bob Stoops? Was that a week or so later?
No, it would have been the day after the game.
Right, where you were sort of like a proxy for a state to a certain extent? Yeah, you can tell that story. Doesn't hurt anybody's fear. Just facts.
Yeah, no. Andy Geiger called me at Winshaw and says, I think we did.
Barely, yeah. That's when I got my first was when the hunt was on air.
Lie. Bob Stoops is from Youngstown, Ohio. He's won a national title in his second year at Oklahoma. Hottest commodity there was. Cooper got fired 2 days earlier. And Andy Geiger called me. Archie's with him in the office. The two of them is, can you get to Bob Stoops and get him a message from us?
Make sure everybody knows Archie Griffin. Go ahead.
Archie Griffin, sorry, associate athletic at the point now to call us in the office. And after his post game press conference, Bob Cooper was with his wife, and he's coming up the escalator, and I go, he knew who I was. I go up there. I actually put my arm around him. We started walking, and I said, "Hey," I said, Ohio State's looking for a coach, and Andy Geiger wanted to know if you want to talk to him, be interested in, the beginning stages. And he just took my arm and I threw it off of me and said, I'm not going through some proxy. I'm paraphrasing. Not going through some proxy. If they want to talk to me, they go through my president. And he didn't say agent, he said president. Yeah, and athletic director, which is Joe Stiglione. It could go by the book. But the bottom line, and I didn't really realize it then, the Stoops family did not have fond feelings for Ohio State. They grew up in Youngstown. None of them were recruited by Ohio State. They all went to Iowa.
Yeah.
And that left a lasting grudge. And to this day, the Stoopses don't care for Ohio State. But and nothing ever materialized. And as you know, then Andy Geiger interviewed Glenn Mason, Mike Bellotti, and then Jim Tressel, and Jim Tressel blew him away in the interview, just like Archie predicted he would. Archie told Andy Geiger, when you talk to Jim Tressel, you're going to have the same conclusion I have. He's the man for the job.
I told Jim Tressel the second night because I was talking to him every night. So the second night of the process, I said, barring somebody coming out of left field, and by the way, that left field was Mike Bellotti. Barring somebody coming out of left field, you're going to be the next coach here. And he goes, why is that? I said, because Andy Geiger's not going to hire Glenn Mason. Because Andy Geiger wanted to hire his quote own man, his own find, so to speak. And Tressel still remembers that, but that's the way it played out because you could just see the cards when they were laying out. But like I said, if you get that, Cinderella comes out of somewhere, maybe you go for it. But if that would have been, well, who knows? The hiring of Jim Tressel home, was a home run.
And remember, Mike Bellotti in Oregon, and he was not a good fit for Ohio State. Now, if he was, the story goes, before he got up playing to fly back to Eugene, he looked at Andy. I think he said, "Hey, just remind me, do we play Michigan at the final game every year?"
Every year? I know it is. Who would know that? 30 minutes before that, I had been sitting in the NetJets waiting room. I'd gone in and said, "Y'all told the receptionist I'd like, I'm trying to run into a passenger here. He's like waiting for his plane right now. His name is Mike Bellotti. I wonder if you could page him." She said, "Just a minute." And then whatever, they were in a back room. He and Archie. I think it was just Archie. I don't think Andy Geiger was there with him. And all of a sudden, this guy comes back. He's about 6'6", probably 260, 270, big dude. Puts his hand on my shoulder, almost picks me up by my shoulder. He goes, "Are you Tim May?" And I went, "Yes." He goes, "With the Columbus Dispatch?" I went, "Yes." He goes, "You have to leave." And he almost picked me up. Anyway, that's a long story. Me and Ryan Miller was working for Channel 10 then, and Drew Yancey was a photographer. We shot a little punch right out right outside the NetJets where you could see into the lobby with their telephoto lenses. And, we saw Bilotti come out with Archie and say goodbyes and stuff, and then he went on. I think Geiger was there with him too, but bottom line is, yeah, coaching searches are interesting, and boy, that search changes everything once you name a guy, good or bad, right?
I wrote this last week, the great story. A lot of Ohio people do not know this is that Jim Tressel interviewed for the Miami job in
Oh, yeah.
1995
Yeah.
in January. I'm sitting in Larry Wall's office after Dennis Erickson goes to the Seattle Seahawks, and Larry's job was to gather names for Paul D to interview, the two of them would interview.
That's right.
And they're going through a list of former Jimmy Johnson assistants with the Dallas Cowboys and elsewhere. He goes, "Who are you like out there? Who you like?" That's well, there's a guy at Youngstown State right now that's turned down a lot of jobs. He's going to get a job eventually, probably waiting on Ohio State maybe someday. I tell him his name, and Larry's direct quote was, "Never heard of it." Yeah, well, it turned out his boss had heard of him, Paul D. And about a week later, uh, Larry calls me from the Chicago Hyatt, the O'Hare Hyatt, and he goes, "Guess who just left our hotel room?" And I said, "I have no idea." And I did. He goes, "Let me tell you, Jim Tressel, one of the most impressive men I've ever met. We're going to offer him a job." And he just blew us away. And they ask him every question, like, "How do your players celebrate a touchdown? What do they do afterwards?" They were trying to clean up the program. Larry maintained for years to me before he died of cancer. And I love that guy. I worked with closer to the Oracle. He maintained for years, and Jim actually accepted the job and changed his mind the very next day.
Yeah.
Jim's hated God, but look how history would have changed if you would have accepted the Hurricane job. I mean, the epic game in the 2003 Fiesta doesn't happen, and all kinds of things don't happen. The domino effect. It's amazing how it happens with one guy's decision. Yeah, they turned to Butch Davis, who hired Larry Coker from Ohio State then as the offensive coordinator. Butch goes to the Browns 6 years later. Coker becomes the head coach, wins a title in 2001, one of the greatest teams ever. Yep. Then the very next year, Ohio State Jim Tressel play Larry Coker in the Fiesta.
Yeah, I mean, and Larry Coker, I think you said that, had been an assistant coach at Ohio State before that, and, great guy. He had that, what did he have? He had some kind of like a Ford Fairlane or some kind of old car he drove all the time. It was kinda cool. I always liked Larry Coker. He always treated me nice. Let me put it that way, even when he was at Miami. But, yeah, it is interesting how things change, just like with Indiana. Indiana had the foresight, what do you call the insight to hire Kurt Cignetti from James Madison.
You wonder how so long into his 60s before he got the boot.
Well, I would think in the interviews, if he did interviews, he might not have gone over as well from the standpoint of his personality.
Well, yeah, I mean, sort of a cocky, but that's what you want. Exactly. Look at his opening press conference. Google me. I win. He first.
Google me. Uh, Speaking of that, I asked Ryan Day at press conference today, uh, like, after the lost to Indiana, there was just a feeling things were fraying a little bit, maybe around the edges from a focus standpoint, maybe, or taking care of the little things. Remember, they were coming off an emotional victory at Michigan. That's no excuse, but they were. And that same week, Brian Ertline got the South Florida job, which kind of spun things up a little bit, headed toward the game with the battle of unbeatens with Indiana and stuff. So Brian Day just, basically told us after that, there's going to be dedication to the little things. Uh, where those intangibles are, that you can't always put your finger on, but they matter so much in a game like this. And so I asked him, what's his sense of did they get that accomplished? Because he and Mick Marotti spent a lot of time formulating how do you handle these 4 weeks of not playing a football game and get your act back together and maybe keeping your edge. And let's just let's hear what he had to say to that.
The first week, second week, third week, and now into the game week. So it needed players, coaches to all be bought into exactly how we wanted to approach this and primed up for playing in this game. So I think it's important on how this time has gone. I think they've bought into it. They've understood it. I think practice has been efficient. Our preparation has been efficient, but now we need to continue to do that as we head into this game. And you know, like any coach will tell you, you want to have a fast start early in the game and then play for 60 minutes.
That's coach speak, but that's exactly what you want. And we'll see if in fact they've kept their edge because obviously Miami had a hard fought game since it finished its regular season, a hard-fought game to get to this game against Texas A&M. At Texas A&M, they found a way to win it. Go ahead.
Well, let me say one thing. Matt Patricia has nothing to clean up. Patricia has nothing to improve on. Matt Patricia, that side of the ball doesn't have any edge it needs to regain. And played a great game. That defense played a great game against Indiana. They didn't have any problem getting up for Indiana. Indiana had 2 field goals and a touchdown. Anytime you give up 13 points, you should win the game, right? And that's an Indiana team averaging almost 40 points a game. So let's focus on the offense and the kicking game.
I'm going to reflect back on one of your great guys you got to cover named Bobby Bowden, who had that famous line at halftime. Wait a minute, let me say it, don't jump in there. Guys, we got the lead. They don't score, we win. Okay.
It's like this. Now, man, yeah, if they don't score, we win, man. You always address any minutes. And he let me sit in a couple of half times during the different circumstances choice, and it was just so much fun watching. He had a notepad. He'd walk around reading from the notepad with his bifocals and, checking things off as he went. He would pace, but he always said, "No, man." Yeah, and that was one of his a lot of famous lines. That was one of they do be at 7-6 at halftime. "No, man, they don't score. We win."
And why is that important? Because it's true.
Yeah, but his checklist he was someone fun.
So don't you think the defense at least work on fade routes? Uh, you know what I mean? Do they have some things to work on? What the back show fade? Oh, it's sort of
But no, I mean, the defense played great and they played well enough to win. It's just the offense, the red zone offense, getting Jada fielding's head right, which I think I'm sure, like I said yesterday, it'll probably be fine.
yeah.
Kickers miss kicks sometimes, and then that's a chip shot, so that's all metal. But no, they gotta clean up their run game issues, their red zone issues, sure, and they gotta clean up their protection issues. And if they do that, and we're gonna know probably a quarter into this ball game, that right side of the offensive line, there's some things there. This is gonna be a game of adjustments. It always is in a big game, but it's gonna be a line of scrimmage game, a game of adjustments. Both teams will be sky high. I mean, we were talking about Miami and watching you up there on the screen not long ago.
We'll see right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 30 for 30. And one of the last things I tell Ohio State when they do that locker room and say, listen, they're going to bait you. They're going to bait you verbally. They're going to bait you, shoving you a little bit. They want that retaliation for the 15-yard penalty. Do not fall for it. Yeah. Do not give in to that. Let them be the ones penalized. Take a punch in the face mask. It doesn't hurt. And I figure Ryan Day needs to tell him that. Remember Travion last year against Texas? So uncharacteristic what he did. He punched it. He lucky to get thrown out because then I think that was before he took the screen pass before, I think it was. Yep, before he took that screen pass to the house that made it 14-7 at the half. But Miami will beat them. They're a bunch of talkers. They have been historically, probably more than any team in college football. You cannot respond to that, get into that. They're trying to distract you, get you not to focus on your job, try to get you to commit a 15-yard penalty. And that's part of what you need to tell them. And I'm sure he's told them, as I hope he has, but that's a big issue.
All we've heard, like I said, you used the word yesterday, recency bias, I think comes into play when you look at Miami has just won a game, a big game on the road. But you got to keep in mind, Miami got beat by SMU, I think in this same town. I think the game was here in Dallas. And Miami got beat by Louisville, which was an average team, not a great team by any stretch, as it turns out. And there were things there where, Miami kind of lost itself offensively in both of those games and also got scored on. So this idea that Miami's suddenly this invincible team, which I think gets kind of lost in translation sometimes with some people, and they just remember last time Ohio State played, they got beat. Yeah, they got beat 13-10. They didn't by the what turns out to be the number one team in the country. They didn't have that big slip this year and stuff. So how would you handle that if you were Ryan Day going in terms of guys like we talked about? Guys, we're the when we play our game, we're the best team in the country.
I've said this for years. You know how final scores get etched in memories of history that they last forever. You know what I mean? But a lot of games, the final scores are skewed or let's take the Indiana game, for instance.
Yeah.
I believe Ohio State should have won the game 24 to 3. Yeah. So Now 13-10 will last forever. That Indiana was a better team that day, 3 points better. They stopped Ohio State repeatedly. They gave up only 1 touchdown, but fact remains, they had a 3rd and 1 on the 4, a 3rd and 1 on the 9, 3 trips in the red zone, and they get nothing of it. And, a right play call here, a right block here, this guy that game ends up 24-13. Ohio State wins by 11 points. And you're not when there's 120 plays in game, you're talking about 3 plays, and yet that 13-10 is etched in history. No different than the 10-3 with Miami over A&M. Now, since that game's been played, all of a sudden Miami dominated that game. But yeah, if you remember the end of it, A&M's got a first and goal at 4.5. Didn't go 4.5. And if they call the right play, which to me was having Marcel Reed roll to the right with a run pass option. I'd have done it twice, 3 times until you hit it. And if he's got a wide open path there, he walks in the end zone. Then you drag 2 receivers. He's got 3 options, 2 receivers and the running. They didn't call it 1. They dropped him into the pocket 3 straight times until he threw an interception. He's not a pocket pass yet. And I'm sure Mike Elko at some point said after the game, boy, did we screw that up. But you roll him to the right, he runs in the end zone. Now it's a 10-10 game. And it was a 3-3 game the whole game. So, it's not so much they dominated. Now their defense played great. At the same time, A&M stubbed their toes several times. Absolutely. They had a field goal block, but Miami missed 3 because a lot of them took the win.
Yeah.
But these games get etched in history. Like I said, the final score is etched in stone. Like that's the way it will forever stand. But yet there's a play here, a play there, when it could have been just the opposite.
Interesting. Ohio State called up basically an RPO, but a sprint pass right on its 3rd and 1 before missing the field goal, and and Indiana jumped it. The running back into the flat, the tight end across into the end zone, and there was another tight end over here, but was saying basically was what you just called
Full of apples and oranges because of different quarter.
that up sucks. But throughout the I definitely keep
Us, they're on the 4-yard line, not the 9.
now you said he's proven he could run the ball in a moment like you're at 4.
And you're approaching the line of scrimmage before you throw or run. He has a 4.
Thing is, it was the play they called that play that you wish Texas A&M should have called.
Not to mention they don't have any timeouts, so A&M had to do a run pass option. Ohio State, now there's 2.5 minutes left. Right. It's not even the same situation. But 3rd and 1, you run that. Go. A&M's not going to run the ball because they had no timeouts on the 4-yard line. So they have to. You remember? There's 20 seconds.
Yeah, I remember everything about it.
There's 20 seconds left, not 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
But what I'm telling you is they did run the play that I would have called there. I would have called a great. All you needed was 1 yard.
So Ohio State should not have called the play. A&M should have.
You're all over the board. No, Julian's saying it's proven he could run the ball. He doesn't run like Marcel Reed.
When did he prove that?
Well, he's had several scrambles. He had scrambles in that game against it. Yeah, or he got a first down on the right side. He ran like 8 yards.
Where I dismiss where he says the curve.
That's not the point. Sometimes when you run and you're not expected, that's when you. On the point, I want to get the first down, whatever it takes.
Well, it's not what Julian's saying run the ball. It's by Lincoln Keyholes.
I don't think it's necessarily lining up with 2 or 3 tights and whatever and predicting exactly this is what we're going to do and then do it and they stuff it. I think you want to be as unpredictable and efficient as you could be in a moment like that. That's the way I look at it. So and I thought that was a good call, except he was late on it had to be a quick throw, I think, to Bo Jackson or Jewett had to just tuck
Todd Ryan, Bill Parcells says your record is what you are, what your record is. The call, if it's a good call or bad call, didn't work. No, it didn't work.
Okay, well, Texas A&M, you're running Texas A&M up and down the pole like that was a bad call. And then Ohio State makes the same calls in basically the same situation. Almost exactly the same situation to be critical of Ohio State. Back into a quarter, finding more. But anyway, bottom line is here's Carnell Tate talking to me yesterday about the offense in that game against Indiana and the points they have to prove going into this one. Fired up are you about Wednesday night? I mean, can you put it in words?
We're very fired up. We know we got a lot. My receivers are from Miami, so this game means a lot to them to go out there and play. It's like a hometown. Their hometown, the crib, all their homeboys back at the crib. So it just means a lot to go out there and win this game.
And in coming out of the Indiana game, what do you feel like y'all Do you feel like y'all let people how would you describe the feeling of coming out of that game, knowing y'all scored 10 points, you know what I mean?
I mean, I felt like the offense, we felt like we let the team down. We got to go out there and score more than 10 points. We score more than 10 points, we win the game. Figures up. Like, our defense did a tremendous job holding them to I think the fewest points they had scored the past 2 years.
And once again, reiterate, you feel 100% right now?
Yep.
What 100%, what does that mean to you?
I'm ready to go. That's not, I don't feel nothing.
On the percentage rate, 110%. Remember, people go, yeah, can't get about
Yeah. Whereas Yogi Berra said baseball is 90% mental, 90% physical, and 31%.
He also said nobody goes to that restaurant anymore. It's too
crowded. Jack Dempsey. Did you ever go to Dempsey, by the way? Is it still there?
I never did.
You know what I mean? Shop minute. Anyway, who cares? Bottom line is, you got Colonel Tate and Jeremiah Smith, both as close to 100% as they've been all year. What does that mean to you? In terms of planning for this game?
Yeah, it's two main weapons with no injuries, status hanging over their heads. So, I expect to see some sets where there are only two receivers split wide, and maybe Ennis might be off the field. Been wrong before, obviously. Ryan Day's game plans and mindset. But, and I love Brandon Ennis. He's reliable, but let's face it, those two guys are superstars. They're both top 5 picks, probably. Maybe Carnell will be a 5 to 10 pick. And their matchup problems. Their matchup problems in Miami. Miami's defensive backs are always shocked at how big and fast they are. Yeah, everybody, when you stand next to Jeremiah or Carnell Tate, they got a reach advantage, you got height advantage, you can throw the ball for grabs in one-on-one. These defensive backs that don't see them year in, year out, like Miami, although they know it's Jeremiah because, he played down there and he had a lot themselves. From the Carnell, I mean, no surprise. They're so big. They're speed spreads people.
Let's see what Brandon Ennis had to say, just as I talked to him about just being that third guy. A lot of times that third guy is who comes up big. Remember, what was the kid's name for Indiana in the Big Ten championship game? Was it Decker? The guy who had the big catches.
He had the big catch, against Penn State.
Yeah. I mean, but who ever heard of this guy until then? But here we go. Let's listen to just Brandon Ennis, how he sees his role, et cetera. Funny, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but you got Jeremiah and Carnell up there, and yet you're this guy that could sneak into and steal the show, so to speak. But how do you guys really get along? I mean, I would think it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, we get along really well. We knew each other for a long time. I knew JJ since I was 9. And sure knew for since senior high school. So we get along really well. We hang out outside the facility all the time and do things outside the facility, but we get along really well.
Yeah. So what do you think you guys have got straight offensively since the Indiana game? What's your sense of where this offense is at this moment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we have a better sense of urgency when we do things. We spend a lot of time on converting in the red zone, third downs. That's where we weren't good in the last game.
Yeah.
Felt like we put a way better game plan together. So them were the areas I think we did a good job at.
Have you seen a difference in the last couple of weeks with Ryan Day sort of like back in charge of the offense for want of another term? He's going to be calling plays I would think the guy calling plays is in charge, right? But what have you just sensed from him and you know what I mean? The tenor of the moment.
You definitely feel a little bit of switching his love. He always had a great mindset the whole year, very intimidating. And I'm looking at his it says, but now it's now he's hands on. When he gets hands on the offense, he calls really great plays. So,
a lot of people in our profession think he's a really nice guy and all this kind of stuff, but he demands, doesn't he? How demanding is he? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, he's gonna get done what he wants to get done. Yeah, and that's I think that's the best way to put it. He's a great coach, great play caller, and I'm excited for him to call plays for us. Yeah. The answer on third down's revealing to me. He said what we worked on third downs,
right,
and that's more important to me than fourth down. No, you don't let it come down to fourth down. Hey, what is first down, third down? So what he said there sort of, I like his ease.
Yeah, well, obviously he had to refocus. I mean, somehow, some way, I just want to know what the answer is. That's why you're doing it. Like I was asking the offensive lineman, you read that yesterday, but what have y'all changed, to handle if they use a lot of switch offs and motions and stuff up front and free guys, drop guys back, and they actually I forgot who it was, but basically said he could tell me, I'm paraphrasing, but then you have to kill me. I mean, in other words, they have addressed this thing. You got to figure Miami is going to try some of that stuff. Either they play you more straightforward up front. I'm talking about their defensive front does than Indiana does. I mean, everybody plays a few games, but Miami likes to just beat you, right?
Yeah, I think what he was answering there was really no, that was Brand is I upstate, yeah, but I think what he was answering here was for the one even dressed in the lies. Open, they go run it, keep that was throwing the ball there. I've said that for, ever. And you know how I feel about that is the coaches say, hey, 3rd and 1, we're taking 2 chances to run it here, not throw it. So, Brandon might come off the field in that situation. So that yeah, you answered the question. Hey, without being specific.
Before we move to one other thing, you know, you've been a football fan all your life, aficionado, I'd call you. I don't know if I'm an aficionado or not compared to you maybe, but pretty close. I'm right up there. I'm just messing with you. How important, I think it's very important to have the best maybe offensive player in the country on the field every play that matters. And I'm talking about Jeremiah Smith. What is your take on that? Just because of the focus he brings from the defense. What is your take on that?
There's 11 on offense, 11 on defense. And when you have Jeremiah Smith on the field, you're basically having 2 defenders account for a norm. Boy, I think about it depending on the down distance and what have you. So, if they're going to shield him or have a man over top, or they're going to shield him, they're going to, have the zone fade.
Let me interrupt you. What I call that, I call it the lean-to defense because somebody's got to be leaning that direction other than the man over.
Or is there in zone and then shade the zone towards, yeah, you're always going to have somebody else that's available if you have time to throw. That's the big key in this game. Yeah, if you have time to throw for that option. And, a good quarterback like Julian Saint, as smart as he is, as he approaches the line of scrimmage, and they don't do it anymore because they're shotgun a lot of times. So let me say, as he's looking over the defense after he's got the call, he knows where he's going with the ball normally. Either, when they're doing well, rarely does he go to 2nd, 3rd, and 4th reads. He did that against the Indiana because the first guy's covered. So if things are going well, he's going to his first option, his first route. And that's why Carnell Tate's so important. So you got 2 number 1 picks out there. You can't double them both.
Correct.
And I want to see what Miami comes out in. And what I expect them to come out in is they're going to have a cover 2 deep and dare Ohio State to run the football. That's what I expect. They're going to say, hey, we're giving you this, run it. Let's see if you can run it. And that first 2 series of seeing their defense, watch those safeties. That'll tell you a lot. Watch the corners. But I expect them to dare Ohio State to run the ball. And Friday sometimes gets impatient and doesn't. He gets 6 yards of 1st down running play. 7 times out of 8, he's come back with a throwing play.
He's aggressive. Anyway, we get into a lot of that in just a few minutes with our good buddy Matt Wilhelm. We have it was a spirited conversation we recorded with Matt Wilhelm, Wisties with Wilhelm.
Matt is a very intelligent football mind.
And he's won a national championship and been part of a Super Bowl winning team with the Green Bay Packers. He's won things and he knows things, and his observations have been so vital on the Tim May Show here for several years. I really appreciate having Matt on, and we're going to have an extended series with Matt here in just a few minutes. But I wanted to get back to Julian Saint a little bit. On this day, as we sit here and record this, Julian Saint was named the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year award winner, national award, even though he's the same age as Rex Stern was when he led the national championship as a super soft. But times they haven't changed in so many ways. But let's get to Ryan Day and his reaction to learning the news that Julian Saint, his redshirt freshman quarterback, is the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year award winner.
First off, anytime you get an award like that, it's a compliment to everybody in the program, his offensive line, his wide receivers, everybody involved with it. We always say, the reason you come to Ohio State is to win championships, and the awards come with it. So, but it's good to see him get recognized. Julian is a young player, and you look at the guys who have had a lot of success in college football over the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of them are older players. Julian's still in his first year, but you can see the growth, how fast from the first game to where he's gone throughout the season. He's a quick learner. He's taken all in terms of each week learning from the last game, growing, and then the confidence as it just built throughout the season. So happy to see him get recognized. But to your point, I think he's got a lot of football out of him. He's got a huge ceiling.
He made that almost exact same point Heisman night at the Heisman ceremony when they had him up, like literally saying, "I am so very much looking forward to coaching this guy again next year."
You know, I really believe looking at it now, if I had to make a prediction, he might be here 2 more years and you never know what agents get involved. But with the NIL, kid like him, as smart as he is, like Peyton did back in the day before NIL, might come back in for another year. I hope he does. He's just going to get better and better and better. And you and I both said before the season, and it's you for us to say now, for I think I was on the record, you were on the right. He's gonna have a great year, and he's gonna surprise people. I mean, some foreign players asked me about him, and I said, "Watch this kid. He's not that big, that sort of thing, but boy, he is very intelligent. The ball comes out quick. The ball is accurate. A lot of pundits talk about accuracy, and they could throw a completion that really wasn't an accurate throw. Accuracy means hitting a guy in stride where he doesn't have to make a cut for the ball, come back for the ball. You hit it stride a lot of times means a difference between a first down and 2nd and 4. Because if you don't a little swing patch, you don't want to throw it behind him. You want it out in front where he catches it, continues to run of stride. And he's just very, very accurate. The most accurate quarterback in Ohio State history, according to statistics. And really, according to logistics, when you watch him throw, he's so accurate. I know they beat Texas 14-7. I wish Ryan would have let him loose in that first game. That'd have been a bigger margin. Yep, because they were very conservative in that game, not knowing how he'd react. But I can tell from the very first throw. You remember his very first throw? He went, it was a 4th down play, and he hit Max Clare right in the hands down the left sideline. Beautiful. You couldn't have thrown it any better. And Max just came over from Purdue. That's his first target. He drops the ball.
Jeremiah had a drop early.
From that very first throw. And I remember how Texas lined up in that play, and it was 4th and 1, I want to say, or maybe 4th and short. But from that very first throw, I looked at the guy next to me, I forget who it was. I said, Ohio State's just fine a quarterback this year after one throw. I always said you can make that under that pressure. And his very first throw as a Buckeye, uh, was that his first throw as a Buckeye? It was, yeah.
Yeah, might have been. We threw one to Jeremiah that got you threw one to Jeremiah that got dropped.
That was later.
But first throw, I might remember the play. We don't get that detail about it, but it felt like it was the first throw. But it was right on the money, just like when you saw him just develop through the spring game, through preseason. Yeah, and because right at the beginning of spring, there was some conjecture going on out there. I mean, he was having to learn some things, but he definitely learned them in a hurry. Here's the thing. If you ever see Julian, see if you're ever in a dart bar and you see Julian saying walking in with a little case of darts in his hands to participate, go ahead and check out because you're not beating him in a dart throwing contest.
Right. And the other thing is, they got a freshman there. I hope they could keep Javion Sinclair because I saw him in the spring game, and all he needs is some seasoning and experience. He's a Heisman winner, Wazy and Weighty. That kid is so talented. I hope he stays at Ohio State and does not enter the portal because he can have a heck of a career.
We're so curious to see finally what happens with Lincoln Keynotes. All indications are he probably will opt to leave, but he hadn't said that out loud yet. But there's a guy also that is developed at Ohio State, got so much better as a thrower, a passer, and obviously will bring that dual threat to somebody, some team.
Before he
You got to play, man. You got to
play opposite out, I'll make one prediction. All right. He has a quarterback sneak for a first down in this ball.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. Is that what you're trying to say?
Somebody said that. I don't remember who it was.
I thought it was Churchill. Was it Churchill? I don't know. I'm just messing with you. Speaking of cool things to say, Matt Wilhelm always puts things in perspective as far as I'm concerned. And it was a rare treat because I had Matt Wilhelm and Jeff Snook with me during our interview pre-tape for this special show, this special pre-Cotton Bowl show. And let's get to that Mary Wilhelm conversation without any further ado. Ladies and gentlemen, Wednesdays with Wilhelm. It switches from Mondays with Matt to Wednesdays with Wilhelm. And then I found out his middle name is Tyler, so it could be Tuesdays with Tyler. But the bottom line is, let's get to our conversation weekly with Matt Wilhelm.
Hey, what would a game week be without Matt Wilhelm on the Tim May show featuring Clay Hall and this week featuring Jeff Snook? Matt, say hello to Jeff.
Great to see you guys. Always good to be with you. And again, I think as much as Christmas was hurry up and get here, and then New Year's, it's like, no, hurry up and get to this game. It feels like the Buckeyes haven't played forever. And I think the lasting memory we have, was the loss. And so the opportunity to go out and compete again and see our Buckeyes do what we think they're capable of doing is really what I'm looking forward to.
Hey, real quick. So what is your take on this game? I mean, you can be all over the board. Like Jeff and I were talking earlier, Ohio State's what a 9.5 point favorite. Has kind of stayed there for the most part this week. Everybody, there's recency bias when it comes to Miami because last time you got to see them play more recently and win a game at College Station against Texas A&M. Texas A&M didn't score a touchdown. So, wow, this defense must be over the top, but the wind was blowing that day. You know what I mean? All kinds of things played into that game. And plus, Miami only scored one touchdown itself, So, what's your take on it?
So I think first and foremost, really nothing's changed in 7 days since, I joined you guys in studio like this, and it was Clay Hall sitting in the other seat. And it's still the narrative that I think is kind of guiding this game, which is the game will be won or lost in the trenches is what a lot of people are saying is. And I also think it's funny that it's the Miami Hurricanes again, and their offensive line is better than their offensive line. Their defensive line is better than our defensive line. And so everybody all of a sudden, while we were the number one team in the country, most of the season, except for 1 week, we are the most talented football team in college football. We're making it easy. We're boring. All these other things. We're efficient. At certain points, we're getting lambasted for being efficient because we're going to play this 16-game season. And now this narrative shifts to everybody talking about how good Miami's fronts are. And again, I'll give Joey Galloway his props, although sometimes I don't agree with him. The talent outside at the wide receiver position is superior for Ohio State. But it also goes back then, circumvent it back to Julian saying, the lasting memory we have in our heads is him kind of under duress, really not comfortable in the pocket in that Big Ten championship. And I think that's what people are depicting in their mind when they kind of play out this game. But I will also agree with legendary football coach Urban Meyer that if the Buckeyes can score 2 touchdowns, they win this football game.
Wow.
And so much of that has to do with the fact that our defense, still the number one defense in the country, will limit Carson Beck and this Miami offense significantly to make it a kind of a knockdown, drag-out football game, kind of like in the trenches, and our ability to get the football to our playmakers more often than they can is how we end up on top and move forward in these playoffs.
What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with most.
I agree with almost everything the preacher Wilhelm said there.
I think the line of scrimmage is going to be huge. I mean, a lot of games, time of possession is misleading. I think in this game, it's important. I think the fact that Ohio State can take away Mark Fletcher and make him a non-factor because they play excellent run defense, put everything on Carson Beck. So they got 3rd and 8 to 3rd and 12, that type of situation. What a huge advantage. So that way you get them in a must-passing situation, and you pin your ears back and go after him. And when they do that, that time of possession of Miami going 3 and outs, what you're going to need, and not giving up anything in the running game is where Ohio State will have a huge advantage. So you look at the team stats after the game, and if I could see Ohio State right now had a time of possession advantage, I'd say that they were going to win the game. They'll probably cover that 9.5 easily.
This sounds weird.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Just to kind of piggyback on Jeff's point, one thing that popped into my head as he kind of got started, I do think time of possession is going to be kind of like a tipping point of who can control the game. But then I also flip to the number of possessions in this football game.
Right. Yes.
Who's gonna possess the ball more? So that also means, and this gets into some things that sometimes the Buckeye actual players can't control, is who wins the toss and what do they do with that coin toss, right?
Sure.
Do you take the ball, go down the field and score? Do you take the ball, go 3 and out and immediately punt the football to the other team? And then also, do you control the inside 6? And for those folks that don't know, the inside 6 are the 4 minutes before halftime, and the first possession or first 2 to 3 minutes coming out of half. So I've been again, having played Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and the great quarterbacks in the National Football League, and I'm not alluding to them having one of those guys, but you could dominate a first half and be up by 10.
Yeah.
And they could go down the field in 4-minute offense or 2-minute offense, get a field goal or a touchdown, steal the momentum in this case at a neutral site, then get the ball at half, make some halftime adjustments, and then go get another field goal. You kick a field goal, then you go get a field goal, and you feel like you've been dominated. Ohio State could have dominated time of possession, have more possessions, maybe be up 10-0. Miami go down the field, get a field goal, get the ball at half, come out and kick a field goal, and you're in a 10-6 dogfight, and you've really lost all the momentum in this football game. You're questioning some things about yourself on how you can get started because that inside 6 was controlled by your opponent in this case.
Do you remember back in your playing days, Miami, for example, in the national championship game in 2002, but getting ready for a team you've never seen before, you haven't seen, in terms of, except maybe you got to watch Miami versus Texas A&M last week if you were a player. Obviously the coaches have their video and all this kind of stuff, but do you remember having to take a play or 3 just to get used to what you had in your mind these guys were going to be all about, but are they all about that? You follow my drift there?
Absolutely. I think when you have coaches and players invest the amount of time into game prep the way that professional and college football players do nowadays, I think you're right. I think I always got excited to play someone that I hadn't played before because, the play it and forget it of the Big Ten when you're used to seeing, Michigan or Purdue or Illinois. And yes, there's some new faces, the guys that were juniors not playing much that are now seniors and they're playing a lot. Nowadays, it's the portal kind of makes every team kind of feel new. But I love playing a new opponent because it was like a wipe your slate clean, reset with my process, which was or the defense's process. That's D'Antonio on down from from when I was a player, or Tressel on down and how we were going to approach our study. But then I also think you also kind of heard some of the narratives about, going back to that game, Andre Johnson is this, Willis McGahee is this, their offensive line is this. And so you're kind of anticipate, you're hyping these guys up in your head. So it's I got to bring it, I got to be on my A game if these guys are so great. Right. And that's not to discount that, we were good or we're not good. But then when you go out there and they run those first routes or they block a concept in the run game that you're either prepared for or you're seeing for the first time early in the game, and I think that's where it goes back to all year long. That narrative I've talked about is Matt Patricia's been kind of vanilla on that first drive to kind of feel out how they're going to attack Ohio State's fronts, the coverages, what pass game concepts are they going to kind of go to early to pick up a little bit of momentum. And then we saw the flip of the pedal to the metal with Matt Patricia and bringing some pressure and tightening things up. And I think that's what I love about these big games is because, 15, 18 million. I mean, on New Year's Eve, there's got to be 18 million people are going to watch this football game. And so I always loved, because that's what we do. That's why, there's billions of dollars being thrown at college football and professional football, is because you're an entertainer. And I love going out, not just, and I preach this, even down to my high school guys, it's don't just make tackles, be the guy that makes plays. Yeah, and I think I always prided myself on both making tackles, but I also wanted to be the guy to make plays that are differentiators at a big football game like this.
Yeah, I want to follow up just a couple of things. Going back to that coin flip decision, Matt, I can almost guarantee you either coach, whoever wins, it's going to defer. They both know their strengths or their defenses, and they want to put that defense out there first and see how they react. Plus, if you're behind by 3-4 points at halftime, you get the ball in the first, second half, and you got a chance to go down in the middle 8 and take the lead. One thing I wanted to say is we're talking about common opponents, not common opponents, fresh opponents. When you're playing a Big Ten schedule and you see these teams not every year, but maybe every other year, except if it's Michigan or, the teams you're playing every year, when you're watching film all year long and you're watching that team, you're seeing the other Big Ten teams on the film. Now when you play in a game like this, Miami, you haven't seen that common opponent.
Yeah.
So you can compare on that common opponent how they matched up here, how they ran this concept, and whatever they did. So you've seen them by the time you get to the end of the year, even though you're not playing them till like Michigan. You've seen them all year against other teams, right?
Sure.
And now you don't have that with Miami. But I always thought the biggest adjustment right away in the first series or two, and you correct me if I'm wrong, was the speed issue. Like, you're running against scout team, and you don't realize Malachi Tony's as quick as he is, no matter who's imitating him, until you get out there. And it takes a series or two to settle down and adjust to that, as opposed to the strength or a stun or twist or whatever it may be. I always thought the speed issue is the biggest adjustment, and it will be in this game.
Absolutely.
You're inside on turf, and Miami's fast. Ohio State's fast too. They don't get enough credit for being fast.
Well, but I think, Jeff, on the flip side, this is what a lot of people, I'm sure, the defensive backs of Miami, who are going to be very talented and can run, don't get me wrong, but we have a 6'3", 230-pound wide receiver that can run 4.3. And oh, by the way, Carnell Tate is probably, not as thick as Jeremiah, but he's 6'3" as well and can run. So it's, again, I just say this, like, I looked up my son and I were looking up mock drafts, after a couple NFL games yesterday that we, were kind of like, where it's like Carnell Tate 6 to the Browns. You know what I mean? Caleb Downs inside the top 10, Arvell Reese going number 2. It's like, so speed and talent, are even going back to 2002. While ours may have been discounted because of how great Miami was, the way the game played out was, we were as fast, we were as physical, we were as athletic. And so much of that has to do with, and I've said this for years, it's like our ability to keep the toughness of Ohio kids in Ohio in the scarlet and gray, and then go out to Florida, to Georgia, into Texas, California, New Jersey, and go snag 1 to 3 playmakers each and every recruiting class. Right. And then, Urban Meyer flipped it on his head and built an SEC football team in Columbus, Ohio. And I think Ryan Day is like the perfect blend of, I'll call it like a Jim Tressel type of recruiting class and an Urban Meyer type of recruiting class, because he knows it's what he has to do to win these type of football games. Actually, not just this one, but the next 3, to be able to raise that big trophy that we really want to at the end of the season.
Right.
Hey, Matt, when you've got a guy like Malachi Tony, like they have, though, that's the freshman, he's still they're still learning how to use him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And coming out of that Texas A&M game, everybody knows his name now. Everybody knows his fame now in terms of what he can bring to the table and stuff. But to you on the defensive side, Matt Patricia, how much do you think they've spent time envisioning where they could go with this guy that they haven't been before? And then, of course, and I know that puts the onus back on the pass rush, getting to Carson Beck, et cetera, which will really help Ohio State in this game in terms of taking control defensively. But how much time do you spend on what they could do with Malachi Tony as opposed to what they've done?
Well, I think in some cases, while in preparation, and again, I'm just paraphrasing when I say this, you're usually going to do a 3 or 4 game breakdown to prepare for an opponent. But in regards to a player like Tony, Tim Walton and Matt Guerri and Matt Patricia, given the amount of time that they've had, along with the defensive backs studying the football game, might watch every game on where and actually maybe some of the GAs creating a hit chart of where does he align and what does he do when he aligns where. And what you do is you start to shrink, what Malachi Tony is best at. It's like, every time he's in the slot, he averages 7.8 yards a reception, but every time he's at the X or the Z, he's averaging 4.7. So his efficiency goes down, or his yards per route run, whatever it might. Again, data and analytics are everywhere in college football, but you start to shrink down what you think, as opposed to speculating what they might do. The data will show you what they will do. And then there's also the wrinkles of what they're going to do. I expect, kind of go back to Jeff's point, Fletcher in the run game early, and then Tony being chess-pieced early, running some bubbles, running some jets, maybe running like a little bubble screen, or a little swing pass where they do a little orbit motion, just to kind of get him in some space, get him the football now. And this goes back to, I'll say Urban Meyer as well, that that left to right, like jet action or bubble action, is an extension of the run game, right?
Yeah.
So and we saw Carson Beck struggle to throw the football down the field against Texas A&M. I expect him to also struggle to throw the football down the field against our Buckeyes. And so how can you build some confidence early in Carson Beck? And the pass game is get the ball out of his hands. 3-step, quick game, get it to your playmakers, get it to Tony in space, and force us to fit it properly as a defense.
Yeah, they've used him to throw the ball too.
Oh yeah,
he's
Wildcat.
And remember that touchdown was technically a pass. He tossed it to him forward.
Well, yeah,
but no, I'm just kidding. But
what JT Barrett days.
No, what they got to work on is punt returns. That kid is a game breaker, as a punt returner, and he had one against A&M, just got tripped up, and then they missed the field goal. So they're going to know where he is on the field every down. And remember, their opening schedule, they had Notre Dame and Florida. So I mean, they've had 2 extra weeks to prepare to go back and look at that, and he was a breakout performer back then. So they had strength starting out of the gate. They didn't play Florida A&M like they normally do, and so they did play Bethune-Cookman. Let me take that back.
Well, I also feel like the one other thing that I thought about in kind of preparing to come on is I'll just use Tyler Bone as an example. Given some past history at Virginia Tech, I know Virginia Tech's had a little bit of changeover with Brett Pry and James Franklin, whatever, but in the time that we've had since we've known it's Miami, you can go back, because it's a good old boy network of coaching and dig into some of those ACC coaches that Ryan Day and his staff have relationships with and ask about what did you, and again, because we're going to be who we're going to be, which is the number 1 defense in the country. But cross-reference some notes of going, what did you guys do to minimize Tony? What did you guys do in certain situations? Well, what pressures did you like on 3rd and 6+ against Carson Beck and this great offensive line? And wow, there's some things that we love, and there's some things that we do that are core, Matt Patricia defensive concepts and scheme stuff. There's some wrinkles that you can add by looking back. What did SMU do against these guys? What did Louisville do against these guys? Call Jeff Brom and talk to the defense coordinator of Louisville. How did you attack them? What were you thinking on 3rd and medium? And I know that might go back 8 weeks, but it's like at its core, just like we at our core are going to do what we do best and we do well with the players that we have. Is you're not trying to recreate the wheel. You're trying to do what we do and add a wrinkle, and just that little bit of insight about, to go back to your point about not seeing this opponent all that often or seeing a player like him. You can dig into your coaching network or the coaching tree and just ask some of those questions to strategically be ready for him in certain situations of the game.
Yeah, and you can go back and watch the Texas A&M game. I mean, Miami didn't go crazy against Texas A&M.
No,
I mean, obviously the wind had a lot to do with game plan as the game evolved, but they did a great job on him, except for the most part, he had a big punt return, big kick return, but they tripped him up and forced a field goal. I think that was missed.
Missed it.
Yeah, it's crazy. So,
well, dude, it was. Fletcher in the run game for whatever reason,
right?
Popping those chunk runs on that last drive. Was the game. Was the game. I guess you could say.
Oh, well.
And now all of a sudden he's Jim Brown.
Yes, exactly. For whatever reason, I don't know why.
No, he was an Ohio State commit, remember? And his father got sick, and
he stayed in Miami
and stayed in Miami to be with his mother. But he'd have been a Buckeye otherwise. But he's the real deal.
He's the real deal. But I'm making a point that the point I'm making is, don't make them out to be something they're not.
They're not.
Except you have to respect what both for example, those 2 players bring to the program, which allows you to maybe make up for what Carson Beck, some of his, shortcomings. But you have to also keep in mind, right, Matt, that Carson Beck at one point was considered one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yes.
And he still got that, although he hadn't been seemingly the same since his injury, last year and a half ago. He's still capable of going off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why, I went back and said, through the coaching tree, call those ACC coaches. But if I'm Ryan Day and I don't have his phone number, I'm calling somebody at Texas A&M. I'm trying to talk to Mike Elko. I'm trying to spend 30 minutes on the phone with him and just go, I know it was windy and I know it was breezy, right? But outside of that, without knowing on game day, it was going to be breezy and windy or whatever you want to call it. What was your mindset? What was your game prep? How are you going to negate? How are you going to affect Carson Beck? Was it, playing, press quarters and getting up all up in these guys' mustache and force them to win their one-on-ones? Was it man? Was it zone? Was it sim pressures? What were they doing to prepare? Because that's the one thing, that we studied, and going back to, now there's so much data and analytics, and I know it's redundant to say it, but where does Carson Beck's efficiency drop? Is it when he steps up? Is it when he moves left? Is it when he's throwing off his back foot? And you construct a game plan, at least from a blitz pressure standpoint and a pass rush standpoint, on how you can force Carson Beck into lower efficiency spots in the pocket. Because again, Tom Brady was like, a 3-foot bubble around him. Outside of that bubble, moving left, he dropped 25 percentage points, from a completion standpoint. When you moved him left, more than a yard, it just, so there's things that I think we're going to do to attack Carson Beck, to get him off his spot and make him uncomfortable, because again, he is a pocket passer. Can he possibly extend and go get a first down with his legs? Maybe, but not against the defense like the Buckeyes have with Reese and Sonny Styles bearing down on him.
Let me just add one thing. Going back to his last year at Georgia, before he had the elbow injury in that SEC championship game, Georgia coaches were not happy with Carson Beck.
No.
I think he threw 12 interceptions that season, and he had multiple in certain big games, including Ole Miss. And Kirby Smart was not heartbroken when he moved on, not at all.
No.
And if you watch the Louisville game, when he gets frustrated and he presses and he's under pressure and he's third and long situation, he'll throw it up for grabs. He threw 4 picks in that game.
I've made this comment. He's going to throw it to you twice. Do you grab it?
You got to catch it, and take advantage of it, and maybe score with it. But you want to get him behind the sticks. You want to get him behind on the scoreboard. And if you do that, where you get pressure on him, he's going to make mistakes. It could get lopsided. That's why and Miami knows this. The running game is what they're going to live and die with. They got to keep the game close with a running game and have Carson Beck ahead of the chains, because he's not a guy that's going to drive him 98 yards with 2 minutes left without making a mistake if you pressure him. And they know that.
Yeah. And I also think, from a game plan defensive construction, it's like we saw Caden Curry, get home multiple times against Indiana, just winning his one-on-one matchup. So to kind of go back to Jeff's point is, you're going to probably bring 5 every once in a while. You're going to let 4, work with different games and stunts, and drop 7, tighten those windows, play between quarters, or, trap 2. And then you obviously, we'll be able to match up with them man to man, and maybe, bracket Tony if we wanted to, and force someone besides him to beat you. But at the end of the day, McDonald's been the number 1 type pick as a defensive tackle. You've got, although Fletcher, 6'2", 225, that's great. We've got Arvell, Reese, and Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles has not missed a tackle all season long. He goes 6'5", 235, 240. So it's not like we have those 6'2", 210, 215-pound linebackers.
Scrapper.
Big, physical, nasty linebackers who can run, who can tackle and cover. So I think, you're going to see us kind of sit back and go, we're going to be able to react to the run game, and we're going to make Carson Beck beat us with his arm.
Let me ask you this, Deb. You just hit the nail on the head of the fellow that I think is key to really making this defense go. No, it's Caden McDonald in the middle. The guy's a unanimous All-American, not just on hype. Hardly anybody gave him much shrift going into the year for whatever reasons, even though he's got a big shrift. But you watch a lot of video. When they let him just be a one-gap dude and get upfield, we need 2 gaps. He's excellent at 2 gap and just reaching out, but when they let him 1 gap and get upfield. So I'm asking you this, how much is that rolling the dice when you let a big guy kind of free to get into an A gap and own it, or as opposed to maybe catching the scraps as they come your way? Because he's really good at picking up the running back with the ball in his hands between the guards, let's put it that way and stuff. But what would you do, especially with Caden McDonald, in a game like this where the quarterback is going to be there in the pocket probably 8 times out of 10, if you follow my drift?
I think, of course, you're gonna see a big physical offensive line. The one thing I love about Caden McDonald is, and every great defensive lineman plays with their hands.
Yes,
they strike, they extend. He holds his ground. You very rarely see Cade McDonald get pushed back. That's just talking run game. So he can separate and win. I think you'll probably see some one gap stunts with Cade McDonald, just to create, because again, Miami's got a big physical offensive line, and they've got good athletes. I'm not trying to discount that.
Absolutely.
But we're gonna use Cade McDonald's athleticism against those big guys and force them to block us on the run. And I think to your point about the freedom that Cade McDonald might have along the defensive line, it's not just something that we're gonna do in this game. It's something they've done all season long, and I think you see, an All-American level linebacker like Sonny Styles playing off of Cade McDonald. So they've done that all year. Is you go wreck it and I'll clean it up. And I think we've seen Sonny Styles, and I think it was showcased in the Indiana game again with no missed tackles and probably 6 to 7 solos in the run game. He just stacks and flows. And again, I was very blessed during my time at Ohio State to have an amazing defensive line in front of me that allowed me to just skate and make tackles and fit open gaps, right? And that means those guys are sacrificing their body to take two and get nobody up on me so I could just skate and go make the play for a 1-yard gain. And I think that's what Caden McDonald is such a luxury to have in the middle. And I think the rapport that he has with both Arvell Reese when he's an off-ball linebacker and Sonny Styles specifically as that Mike or that Cody Simon type of role as the Mike backer in this defense just stacks and fits. And he's, as I said earlier, he's big enough physically to get down Fletcher, who's a big back and runs through tackles.
Mm-hmm. Matt, let me ask you, since you played here and you probably saw every game this year of Ohio State, and I'm going to preface this by saying Matt Patricia should win the Broyles Award. He's done a tremendous job, way better than I thought they'd be defensively. And the one thing he doesn't do enough that I wish he would do in obvious passing situations, and I'm looking at the Texas game right from the beginning, is bring an extra guy or two. And, Arch Manning got comfortable in those final 2 drives.
Yeah.
Their obvious passing situations is 14-0. I'd have been coming after him to put the game away. And he sat back in coverage and didn't bring an extra rusher, and it was driving me nuts. And they let him get back in it with a touchdown, 14-7. Then they had the ball at midfield again. And he did it against Illinois. You remember Illinois scored 16 points. That's the most they've given up all year. And it was obvious passage situations in the fourth quarter. And I never did like Luke Altmaier, whatever his name is. And he just let him sit back in a clean pocket, and they played coverage all the time. I just wish he'd bring that 5th or 6th guy. Did you notice that a little bit this year?
I did. I absolutely did. I actually noticed a few times, and I love it when he did it earlier in the season. It seems like he's deviated from it slightly. It's like that penny front, like that 5 down front with, like Sonny stacked right behind it. You bring Arvell up on the edge, and you can actually disguise the, who's coming, who's dropping off the edge. But yes, I think so much of it has to do with the NFL brain that he has. And you see, Flores and you see Bowles, do it in Tampa. They'll just flat out, mug everybody up and bring everybody and play the chess game at the line of scrimmage. I think Matt Patricia would rather play the chess game on the back end. Yeah. And I think we saw that earlier in the Texas game. We saw it in the Washington game. I think it's what the genius of Matt Patricia, the player that Caleb Downs is in between his ears, not even so much physically, was the pre-snap look and the post-snap location that he would be, and his ability to get to his landmark and still affect the football game from 18 yards deep. It's crazy. I do still think, and this is what I'll say, we're Ohio State. We've got defensive backs that can play these guys one-on-one, whether it's match quarters or press man. And again, they've got good players too. They've got a good quarterback. Sometimes they throw it and they'll make the catch. But I do believe that bringing that extra hat and keeping Fletcher in, or keeping the Y in, or forcing them to chip out or check release, things like that will affect Carson Beck in this case. Absolutely. Because if I'm Carson Beck, although he's got 50 starts in his college career, his last performance, his confidence can't be all that high unless the coaches and players kind of build him up. They won their first round game in spite of him throwing for less than 150 yards, right? And so there's a lasting psyche thing about, if I played well, I'd go into the next game immensely confident, right? Yeah. But if I didn't play so well, and oh, by the way, you're seeing the number one team or number one defense in the country, and they like to show things and play that cat and mouse game with my mind and with what I see pre-snap and post-snap. I'm a little bit in my head if I'm Carson Beck. So to Jeff's point, I'm always going to tilt towards pressure because it just speeds things up for an already finicky quarterback based on what we saw last against Texas A&M.
Especially a guy that likes to stay in the pocket.
Yeah, because he's not the dual threat.
He's not Marcel Reese,
correct. But on the flip side, and that's where I think maybe we all need to go back and restudy, or having that conversation with Mike Elko and restudy what Texas A&M to attack him is. We also talked about earlier, and not so much under duress, but just the pressure to deliver a big throw. Carson Beck will put it in a tight spot it's very much a 50-50 ball. It's as much to his guy as it is to a defender who in tight coverage can make that big play.
Right. Bingo.
And when I'm talking about the extra ad, I'm talking about obvious passing situations. I don't mean first and second down. When you get him, and he's somewhat of a statue, you get him back there and you know they got to throw and he's going to be on a certain spot. I mean, I love bringing 5 or 6 and man up and let them do their thing, because that's the way to turn the game around, be aggressive on defense, and they got the tools to do it.
Yep.
But I guarantee Matt Patricia thought one thing when he saw the outcome of that game. He got the right team to play. He would much rather play Miami and a quarterback that drops into a certain area and it's not a threat
around
than having to spy Reese all game with or Marcel. It is Reese, right?
Marcel Reed.
I'm sorry, and with Arvell Reese. That's what I was thinking.
Right.
You don't want to take him away to spy all night, and that guy can take a bad play and make a good one out of it. But I'm sure they're happy they're playing Miami. At least the defensive guys are.
Well, I also think to kind of piggyback on that, as you do your game prep. Although they're very good as an offensive line, you have studied what gives them, who's the weakest link along the offensive line,
right?
And you construct a blitz or a rush to attack him, right? And then on the other side, it's what protection, what can you show? What have they struggled with? Is it double mug in the A gaps? You know what I mean? Or is it you show a blitz off of an edge and they want to slide protect, and then you're bringing something off the other edge. So that's the cat and mouse game and the chess match that I was talking about. And I think in 2025 in the college football season, no one's done it better than Matt Patricia. So I think that's the study, the extra game prep, as I talk about the networking amongst the coaches on, if you were to go get one guy on the Miami offensive line, who's the weak link and how would you attack him? Ask
exactly.
those, because your eyes are going to tell you and your study, but you can bridge that gap by calling a buddy and going, who's the weakest link and how would you attack them? Or you look back and on 3rd and 6+, to Jeff's point, a pure passing situation, how do you attack this offensive line? How are they going to protect? What are they anticipating? How are they going to protect it? And how do you attack that protection? So that's the gift that we have of the extra time. And I'm just going to say this, and it just popped into my brain, is my son, who's a recruit, thankfully he's a Buckeye, but another team that was, kind of up there in the running towards the end of it was the Pittsburgh Panthers. They ended up going 8-4. I watched their bowl game against ECU, and at halftime of the football game, and I think this is the challenge for the Buckeyes, the challenge for Ryan Day is, and again, contradictory to what we did last year by having to beat Tennessee at home to keep our playoff hopes alive, is some of these bowl teams come out flat. So Pitt came out. I mean, again, they couldn't score. They couldn't get a first down. Quarterback's throwing a bunch of interceptions to the other team. It's like when you don't play football, when you're used to playing football every 7 days, or even every 14, because of an open date or a bye, and all of a sudden you've got 28 days or whatever it happens to be. And, some of which you've known your opponent, some of which you haven't, is your ability, especially at a neutral site, not a home game, where you got everybody telling you you're the greatest thing since sliced bread or trying to prove everybody wrong on the road. You're at a neutral site, so the energy is going to be a little indifferent, right? There's the hype of the bowl game, the Buckeyes coming into town yesterday. You've got a couple of days, you got media day today. So you've got a lot of these intangibles that you haven't had to deal with by then also going out and starting fast. The point we talked about, you win the coin toss, you defer, you go. Does the defense go out and get a stop, or is the defense a little sloppy and they end up giving up a bunch of yards and Miami gets points on that first drive? Or does Miami defer and Ohio State's offense is lackluster 3 and out? Or are they gunning like bam, 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 and we go score 7? You know what I mean, on the first drive, and we start like gangbusters. Your confidence goes through the roof. So if you're flat, you don't want to. And again, you're looking to yourself as a player. there's the self-motivation aspect, right? And you don't want to have your ass get ripped by Ryan Day or your coordinators because you've come out flat. You know, and essentially, now that the Michigan game is over, the Big Ten Championship game, the biggest game of our season, because if you don't win, you're at home watching everybody else play.
Matt, your son made the best decision of his lifetime, and he will never regret that. I mean, I've seen enough of Pitt over the years that Saturday I called, or whatever that game was against East Carolina, who had a bunch of opt-outs. I said, that was a Pat Narduzzi special. That's just the way they play a lot of times.
2-6 in bowl games last 8 years.
Exactly. And I wouldn't want to commit to him. You never know what you're going to get with them. But no, he made the right decision.
He did, absolutely.
Hey, Matt, we got to go. So give us a pick. I mean, this is your shot until the next pregame show we do. This is your shot, Matt.
I'm gonna go Buckeyes 24-10.
Wow, that's kind of what I'm thinking, man.
I said 27-10. He's right on it.
Yeah, I'm thinking they're going to get in the 24-31 range. I just have that sense about me.
And I believe that the Buckeyes are going to jump out ahead again with some energy, with some juice. After the layoff. I think what we're going to find is Mario Cristobal and this offense are going to eventually make some weight. They're going to get in that situation in plus territory, but the Buckeye defense is going to bow up, and we're going to win on fourth down multiple times. So they're going to be down double digits, and Mario Cristobal in plus territory in the second half is going to have to go for it on multiple occasions just to keep those drives alive, because they know they just can't punt it away to us, and we'll just give a couple of first downs and burn through the game, or go get a field goal and just keep adding to the lead. But I think our third and fourth down defense against Miami will be elite, and is really going to be the differentiator in this football game.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call the Wilhelm crystal ball against the Mario Cristobal. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely, you are.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
I give Matt one more stat. Yeah. One more stat. Out of every team Ohio State's played this year, 13 teams, they put an over-under on the opponent's scoring. This week it's 15.5 on Miami, 15.5 points.
That's crazy.
Only one team Ohio State played went over their number this year, and I bet you guys can't guess who it was.
It's probably Ohio University.
No. They had 9.
Oh.
I think theirs was 10.
Yeah.
It's Penn State.
Penn State.
Yeah. So everybody was under, including Indiana. Indiana went up to 20.5, and they scored 13.
That's Cardinal Tate and I, we were talking about that today. It's like, man, 10 points just not enough, man. You gotta, the other team scored 13 and you only scored 10. I mean, that's
Miami's
pretty pathetic.
15.5 tells you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
Hey, Matt, enjoyed it again, my man.
Thanks, Matt.
Of course, always, Jeff. Great to see you. Happy New Year, guys. We're entertaining again for New Year's Eve, but I'm going to be hyper focused and dropping some, some vulgarities at my big screen television, watching the Buckeyes.
Dude, you got to have that one room you can sneak off into. Because I used to host,
especially in crunch time.
I used to host Super Bowl parties. Biggest mistake I ever made, and finally I had to sneak off room, and finally said, "Heck with this! I want to watch the game."
People ask you questions, you can't focus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, happy wife, happy life. Though I'm gonna be in a room full of Buckeyes, but I'm sure there's gonna be some straggling Miami fan in there who's feed him some humble pie.
I think we're gonna have at least 4 more of these shows, is what I'm thinking. With Matt Wilhelm.
You had him on for half an hour. We didn't have one question about the 2003 national championship.
That's because we already covered that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
By the way, and Matt, we hashed it out the day before about just what an incredible game that was, an incredible collection of athletes, and boy, some of them just the stars have been crossed for them. Obviously losing several Ohio State Buckeyes since then to death, and just some of the challenges other guys faced on and off the field, and it's just unbelievable. But 24 years ago, right? I mean,
you're aging me significantly, bro. Yeah. But I'll tell you the one thing that I think I find myself, and I know I've detailed it all year long, is how impressive, and I'm sure Jeff's going to agree with this, how impressive, although every year you think Ohio State can go win the national championship, right? And that's the expectation, now at a school like Ohio State. But all the guys, the Caden Currys, the Caden McDonalds, the Kenyatta Jacksons, the Arvell Reeses, the Jermaine Matthews, that's just on the defense side of the ball. The guys that have stepped up behind other multiple year starters in the Scarlet and Gray to play their best football as a redshirt junior or as a senior to position this team with Julian Sand and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and the guys that we knew were going to be guys going into this football season, has so much to do from a development standpoint, which is why, again, to Jeff's point, why my son is going to be a Buckeye.
Right.
You just put your head down. You know you're in the right place with the right people, and you work. And then when it's time, you go out and do what these guys have done to position yourself to go on a run to win a national championship. It's very special.
Absolutely. Iron sharpens iron.
I call it Ohio State's perpetual transfer portal, because you've got these guys bubbling up every year that you've sort of forgotten about, but they've played a little bit. And now all of a sudden, when it's their moment to step up, instead of going elsewhere, they step up at Ohio State, which is the same thing as the transfer portal,
It is. And to be very frank, and it's something that a lot of people probably overlook.
Yeah.
I'm not making it about my son, but my son will play better players in practice than he will play when he plays Rutgers. Then when he plays and he plays Northwestern, then when he plays and he plays Purdue, then when he plays, and you can fill in the blank to, maybe 8 to 10 Big Ten teams in conference. He'll see better opponents, which are his teammates, in practice than he will when he goes and puts on plays in front of 105,000 people in Ohio Stadium.
Not to mention their work ethic rubs off on each other. I mean, you got guys that are not slacking or looking for the NIL. They're working every day their butts off, and that rubs off the team chemistry on everybody. And this culture is like second to none right now.
Yeah, it does. And that's the one thing Tim and I have discussed all year. I mean, the brotherhood, the culture, the development, that's why we have the pride that we have. I think that's why, Ryan Day is held in the regard also with the national championship. Also this year beating Michigan, getting that monkey off of his back, is a top 3 head football coach in all of college football right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Matt, once again, this is my 3rd time trying to end this.
Sorry.
Give a man a rope, he'll turn it into
I'm guilty too. I perpetuated that.
No, you did. But it's always great talking to Matt Wilhelm. I mean, I think people know that about me by now. But Matt, we'll see you next time. Like I said, I think we got 4 more shows coming at least. Don't you think, brother?
Let's go. Yes, sir. Happy New Year, boys.
Happy New Year.
Same to you, man.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure speaking with Matt Wilhelm. I tell him that to his face. I text him that every time, and you got some Matt Wilhelm in you there for 30 or 40 minutes. What'd you think?
Well, I love Matt. Matt is very cerebral. He knows the game of football defensively. Fronts coverages, blitzes, you name it. He played in the NFL a long time. Wears the Super Bowl. I don't know if he wears it, but he's got one. And he won it right here, Jerry's work.
Yeah, exactly. As we just told you, brought that up with, and that was cool. But the bottom line is, real quick, is before we fade out here and get ready for the game, what's sort of your score prediction for this one?
I mentioned it yesterday, I believe. I'm going with 27-10. I think the Ohio State defense will stifle Miami. I think they'll take away Mark Fletcher, the running game, force him to throwing situations. I'll say Carson Beck has at least maybe 2. But, I was wrong about the Indiana game. So, I don't want perfect track.
But golly, man, you get down there so close several times, you come away with nothing. That's tough. In your head, you don't expect them to get down there. You know what I mean? When you're forecasting a game, you don't expect that to happen.
I think they'll bounce back. I hope they do. I live in South Florida, very 70 miles from the Coral Gable campus. Next week, we're looking at a week at the Camelback Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona.
I know the entire media contention that covers Ohio State is rooting for Ohio State to win. They want me to cussing that Eddie Moore and Senny by will, but, we've been to the Fiesta Bowl how many times? I mean, I started going 1987. It's the best bowl trip in the world for me around Richmond. I want one more before I croak. So hopefully next week is it. I'm not sure about that harbinger. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on the trip, though. I'm looking at something like 27-13 myself. I think Ohio State could score more than that. I don't know if it will, but might have the opportunities. I'm telling you, if they can protect, they can throw the ball on this defense. I'm going to stand by that until I'm proven wrong.
I think Ohio State gets a lead in the fourth quarter, especially the fourth quarter. This isn't a game where Ryan's going to keep throwing and running up. He's going to eat that clock, right, to 2-score lead. So I don't expect them to go in the 30s or 40s unless they get a pick six or keep it score. So no, I expect almost like that Texas game last year, then of 2014. Yeah, more in the low scoring side. He knows he's got a week coming up, another game. And when you know that, you get your starters off the field in the fourth quarter. Yeah, in the last, and I'm calling it the last two series. Yeah, series. You're not punching another one.
It did funny. The Texas game this year, 14-7 was 14-0. And Ryan, they played trestle ball.
Sure did.
Sure did. And they hung on and won. But I think Ryan is one of those guys who always wants a little more comfort, comfort feeling there. If he can add a pillow to the situation, he's going to add a pillow. He could have had a Texas game.
Yeah, on it. And absolutely. We talked about that with Matt. Matt Patricia didn't blitz much at all in that ball game. I thought if they'd blitzed Arch Manning more, they'd had a shutout.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 88%.
Because I don't want for Jamie for you. For you, exactly. For you, that's for you. Anything over 51%.
I know Matt Patricia's very much looking forward to this matchup. He's almost built for postseason. What can we throw at them that they haven't seen from us before?
Right, and he's had that extra 2 weeks for correct. They had both teams in the can where film ready to go. Who playing? And like I said, I guarantee he wanted to play Miami, not Marcel Reed.
I meant to ask him the other day how many pencils he went through over these 3 or 4 weeks. The pencil he keeps behind his ear. But we'll find out. Maybe I'll ask him on tomorrow night, on Wednesday night, New Year's Eve, after the game is over. I do believe Ohio State will all sway. Hey, Jeff, thanks for joining me again, man. It's always a blast. You know that. I wish people could record or be part of our conversations at the dinner table, et cetera. Do you agree?
I agree, and we had a little bakery today, which is just nothing compared to what bartenders and waitresses see all the time. So, it's a give and take, and when you have a give and take, you learn a lot, right?
Yeah, I think you do, don't you? Ladies and gentlemen, as I like to say, true dat. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, which will probably be on Thursday or Friday, this is Tim May. That's Jeff Snook. The Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall is going to be coming back right at you. We gave him a little bit of a day off so he could rest. He's back in Columbus. I know he'll be watching every play of Ohio State versus Miami. Hope you do too, and we'll be back to discuss it and what maybe the future's all about. Because right now, the future's up in the air until you get the W. For Jeff Snook, I'm Tim May. This has been the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. We'll see you next time.
Shh. By the way, Clay has left the room. I wanted to let you folks in on a real bargain out there in the world of simulator golf. The Back Nine Golf, which is located at 2820 Fishinger Road in Upper Arlington, has a hell of a holiday box available to you right now. The value is nearly $300, but your price is $150 if you jump online. That's almost 50% off if you jump online at Columbus at theback9golf.com. That's their email address. Their website is theback9golf.com/Columbus-upper-Arlington-OH/ That's a long address, but just write it down a couple times watching it. And you can also call them at 614-362-7888, parentheses, PUTT, P-U-T-T. But the bottom line is one of the new ultra modern simulators that you can find in the greater Columbus area. And it's really right there in the middle of Upper Arlington. I know Tito Thidoff and I hopped in there the other day. I think it was 16 degrees outside. There was snow and ice everywhere, and we played Pebble Beach. And we did it in less than an hour. So it's one of the great bargains going out there. And with this holiday box, you get 1 month of Birdie membership. You get Back Nine branded golf balls. You get cozy Back Nine beanie, and you get premium Back Nine towel. So that's a hell of a deal because basically it's unlimited golf. It's 24/7. You get a code to get you in the door, and then you can go from there. And it's definitely fun. It's the premises are pristine. I know we had a great time. We even played closest to the hole, a few shots on number 7, famed number 7 short par 3 at Pebble Beach the other day, and had a great time doing it. So if you're looking for that last minute gift for a golfer that you love, or yourself that you love, that you're a golfer, nothing wrong with giving yourself a gift at this time of the year. That's the Back Nine Golf Holiday Box, and it's only a limited time. And there, as you can imagine, there are only a few available. Quantities are tight. So check in at theback9golf.com.